Okay, so you're welcome once more, and I am Maurice Nelson, your host and founder of Childish. So in this session, in this particular edition of interview, I promised you we're going to be talking about child discipline. All right, so we have here my very wonderful mentor, yeah,
Adebamiro.
Mrs. Adebamiro. Thank you very much, ma. So we won't be asking her some questions. She's already a mother. In fact, what we're even looking at is going to be a grandmother soon. All right, so we'll be asking you, ma. Question is this: how are you doing it? What's your own method of discipline? How are you disciplining your children at the moment to to get to what you want them to be?
Okay, well, I won't say my own method will be a standard for every other person because when it comes to raising children, we are talking about individuals with their own minds,
Hmm?
different from us, their own self will and intellect.
Mhm.
So, how do we now bring them up in a way that befits the standard of the society? When I'm talking about standard of the society, I'm not talking about trying to fit them into some general societal standards, because they have their individual peculiarity, but in such a way that they will grow up to be useful adults and add value to the society. So, discipline of a child starts right from when the child is a toddler. Majority of the times, once you lose it before the age of 10, it's going to be difficult for you to get that child back in order. For example, I happened to, okay, I walked to a shop, I wanted to get something, and this child came from school and needed, I think she was looking for her shoe. And then she now told her mom, "Mommy, where's my shoe?" And it started like a casual conversation. The mom was like, "Okay, the shoe is there." And the next said, "I said, where's my shoe?" And then she got more aggressive. And the next started shouting like all this Agbero, "Come on, stand up for where you are." I was like, "What is this?"
Ah,
And I told the girl I was going to spank her. Apparently, because um, it's something she had been doing, and her mom was not saying anything about it. And if she continued like that, I'm trying to wonder the kind of adult she's going to be. Probably a very disrespectful adult. And the mom was trying to make excuses for that behavior. So this is the formative year. These are the formative years of a child's life. And watching a child growing up with that kind of attitude and leaving the child, making excuses, will definitely bite back when the
sure,
child becomes an adult.
sure.
Well, I knew that from the start. The formative years of a child matters a lot. But then there's another problem. Majority of us in my generation, I'm a Gen X, and we were brought up by boomers generation.
Hmm?
And they were brought up by probably, I don't know, the generation before boomers. But we grew up with shouting, yelling. We troll on our mothers on social media now about the way they behave to us. Yes, your mother is a lion and in the bosky at home, and then she's a saint in the church.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, majority of us grew up with the mentality with which we were brought up, and that is the same inbuilt attitude we try to raise our children with. So I see a lot of mothers online now, like, how do I manage this toddler? I keep screaming, I've been screaming because we're brought up yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
And then we didn't want that. We felt we would be better parents. And then unfortunately, we find ourselves towing the same line that our mothers and our fathers started with, the kind of discipline we grew up with. And I will not lie, when my children were smaller, I started that like that, like, I will spank, then I will shout, then I will beat. And now they are growing older, and well, the older they grew, the more I realized that I cannot. I mean, I have sons taller than me now. I can't even flog you again. But I even stopped flogging a long time ago. When I say flogging, one thing I try not to do is to follow my anger. That was once in a while. Probably after I'd warned them like several times and they refused to listen. So it wasn't like the way. I think that was where I restrained myself better. I didn't flog. So please, I will not use that flogging as standard for anybody, please. This is this is because what works for one child may not work for another child. There are several methods of discipline. Even when we're growing up, our parents didn't always flog. There were some punishments they gave us that were even worse than flogging.
Yeah.
And they would just tell you, Shebi said you are bored, Abby. Go and wash those 20 paints. And I must not see. Yeah. And then next time you will not dare tell your parents that you are bored.
Yeah.
You know, so they had their own different method of discipline too.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will even leave you to your own choice and then leave you to just enter the trouble and then knowing that you will come back. So discipline of a child is not overtly in flogging. It's not. But there are other ways of disciplining a child, making sure that the child, and discipline should be done in love.
Yeah.
Now, I have 4 children. My last born is 12. He was the one I really had it tough with. And I got angry too. Sometimes I would just get angry and I will yell, I will shout because he has this kind of personality that when you tell him don't do this, that's the same thing he wants to do. So every child comes with their own peculiarity.
Yeah.
My firstborn wasn't like that. So I didn't even have to do that. So I think you have to study the personality of your child to deal with the child.
Yeah.
There's no hard and fast rule precisely. But yes, you can teach them by modeling certain behavior and attitude. You can teach them to take responsibility for what they have done. Sometimes even when they beg for forgiveness, mommy, no, make them take responsibility. I am insisting that you should go and get that plate off that place. I'm not going to do it for you. Especially when they are toddlers, they are growing up. You make them know that they should take responsibility for whatever it is they have done.
Yeah.
That's also a method of discipline.
Yeah.
And then yelling and shouting is even off it.
Yeah.
It's just most of us do it because we're brought up that way. So it has become inbuilt in us. But some of us are trying to unlearn what we have learned over a period of time. And incidents happened with still my last born, and I was shouting. I'm not talking of something that happened in too distant time, in the past. And my firstborn sent me a message. I was looking for something and I pinned it on him because he's always mischievous. My firstborn sent me a message, Mommy, at least you should have been more composed in your reaction. That broke me. When I came back home, I had to apologize to both of them because they were both at home when the shouting spree and and that was based on a trajectory from the past. Yes, he had always had that knack. But I think by and by, watching him now, he has really, really improved in his behavior. So sometimes children require patience. Some of them, there are some things age we just naturally tell them to stop doing. Of course, they have to be modeled into it. Yes. One thing I try to do in trying to make sure that okay, let me just start this way. I tell these children, I'm not raising you for myself alone. I'm raising you for the society because you will not always be with me.
True.
I wouldn't want your teachers in school to start complaining about you as if you were not well brought up from the house. I'm not saying you shouldn't be yourself. It should be you. It should be your own person. But at the same time, you should be somebody who is working towards becoming useful to the society. Yeah, because I would not even always be there forever. One day, me and your dad are going to age, and then we're going to leave you. You're going to continue the legacy we left behind. So, bringing them up, yes, it wasn't a smooth road. It wasn't easy. Sometimes you just have to figure out what best works for this child. My second born too had my last born personality, but not as tough. I used to think he was the toughest, but I discovered that my last born is the toughest in the house. So, yes, so he too had this. I think he had some issues with being too serious. We didn't even talk too much. No problem. You see, I am this parent that believes it takes a village to raise a child. Yes, I still believe in that. I know, yes, we have this Gen woke now. I call it Gen woke. No, nobody can love my child the way I do. No, there are some things you will not see that others will see. And some of this way we were brought up, where you have some mothers seeing you behaving in a certain manner, and they call your mother's attention back at home to it. We saw it as gossips then, but some of these gossips were actually helpful at the end of the day. So We live in a generation now that wants to do no, it's just me and my children. Don't come near me. But I have never believed in that. Otherwise, there'll be no need to send a child to school.
True.
Yes, to be disciplined. Discipline is part of it.
Yeah.
What we will just kick against is abuse
Yeah.
of a child.
Yeah.
So technically, it still takes a whole village to raise a child. Even we as adults, I mean, that is why the law is there too. You
Yeah.
break the law, you go to jail, or you are
Yeah.
incarcerated, yes, or you are whatever. So there's no point in time when we get to that point where we feel nobody can even be disciplined to start with, no matter the age we find ourselves. But then that formative years is always very critical, most especially between 1 to 10 years of age. The older a child grows, the more advanced in decade, the more difficult it
Yes.
gets.
Yeah.
So there are
Correct
some
some stuff.
certain attitude you notice in a child, and you know that this is going to be detrimental to this child. Every child wants to explore, every child wants to test the waters and see how their parents are going to react. And then how you react now is where the issue is. You have to study your child, know the peculiarity of your child. There are some children that words hit them better.
Yeah.
You don't even need to do anything. Just talk. They will just comply. But some children we know they require more than words. So this my second born was this kind of child that he was also this kind of I got to a stage he was always at loggerhead with his dad,
Ah.
particularly as he grew older. Not until we decided to put him in a boarding house. Because I know there's people who have their reservations against boarding houses. But like I said, what works for me may
Now
not
work for
work
another
for
person.
you.
Yeah.
Immediately we put him in the boarding house. My son that ordinarily on a good day, I'm talking of when he was in GS2, GS3, he's this kind of person that you still have to follow around to make sure his uniforms were washed. My son, if you take your eyes off him a bit, is this kind of child that on Monday morning he has two sets of uniform, but he will not wash any
Washing.
throughout the week. The Monday morning he will dip it inside water and wash it at 4 a.m., expecting magic to happen at 6 a.m. to get his clothes
Get
dry,
dried.
knowing fully well that the school bus will be coming by 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
He was that kind of child. And then when we got fed up of, football today, just too unfocused, straight boarding school, that was more than enough. Now he's someone that within the first week of vacation, he has started arranging his uniform. And
Wow.
I'm like, so that's why I said it takes a village to
To
raise
raise
a
a child.
child.
Yeah.
There are some things you may not be able to handle because of familiarity.
Yeah.
Maybe it's mommy now, but somebody else outside will fix it for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
It doesn't make we can't say you can completely do the work. It's a synergy. You can't abdicate your responsibility to school in as much as school
School
too
cannot.
can. Yes,
Yeah.
you have your own part foundationally speaking
Yeah.
as a parent to do what you need to do. So just in summary, one, to be able to have effective child discipline, you have to even understand what discipline is as a parent. That was the mistake majority of us. We did not even learn the meaning of discipline. As at the time we were having children, we did not understand what was parenting. Like, yeah, maybe some of us read it because we wanted to get married, but we soon forgot about the whole thing and then we tried doing it by ourselves. So you have to understand what discipline means, number one. Secondly, what method of discipline works best for your child?
Child. Yeah.
Yes, and then not one method of discipline is going to work out.
Yeah.
My firstborn had this thing he used to do when he was little. He would just say waka. I don't know where he picked that. Either from the, in fact, we had to move from our original environment, yeah,
To
because
another
the
place.
environment affects a child a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then he would just, it was something I'd been correcting at home, I flogged him, like, not flogged as in maybe flogging to stupor, no, just like, stop that. And one day he just did it outside and I just gave it to him right there. And he started crying. He cried because I did it publicly. He really cried. That was the last time I can remember my son did it till he grew. So
Wow.
sometimes um, some form of spanking,
Yeah.
especially when they are still little.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that, of course, as they grow, they begin to move out and interact with other people.
Yeah.
And then they come in with some kind of attitude that you begin to wonder where that is coming from, because you are not raising your child like that. So the kind of discipline to be used depends on the kind of issue on ground.
Yeah.
Because discipline in itself, like I said, it's not only when a child commits offense. You even have to train your child to be disciplined. As the child ages, you teach them the dynamics of discipline gradually. And then the method of discipline, or like a book I read on personal branding, the method of parenting you used when a child was 3 is not the kind of method you're going to use when a child is 13.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that there's a difference between those age brackets
Yeah.
and the age gap. And what you're going to use at age 13 is not going to be the same at age 17.
Yeah.
In the later teens, 19, even 20 something years. You know, because sometimes children need to be called to order
Yeah.
at some part. So what kind of parenting style is going to work with each? So to cap it up, understanding discipline from a different perspective from which we were used to is what matters. You have to have another what exactly is discipline, and then before you start talking about how to apply it to a child that you are grooming. And it is best done when a child is growing up. Like the Bible says, train up a child the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it. I remember, when I was growing up, there were some children that, yes, as teenagers, they wanted to move this way and explore. But because of the foundation they had, even now at adulthood, it's still a bit difficult for them. Yes, they explored and they told some parts.
Yeah.
But you will still know that no, there's something back at home. I had a training back at home.
Yeah.
There's something my parents will not even hear. That fear is always there. That regard is still always there. But for a child who was not even brought up to see the difference between right and wrong, he just feels it is right. Me, I should do it after all. Do you understand? So I think on this note,
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. That's a lot of wisdom shared out. A lot. I mean, we intend to end everything here. I think you've learned a lot. There's a lot of things shared out there. So, man, thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you very much. Don't forget, Childish loves you. Yeah, that's the name. All right, man. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you.
All right.
Bless you.